killed. You know, if you think of Jalalabad as a city where there are very few buildings that are more than 2 or 3 stories. So it was almost difficult, well, it was too difficult for them to comprehend the full horror. So that's why she kept referring to 9/11 as a mishap. And then she said something else that was interesting. She said, you know, we are very, very sorry for the American people, but what has it got to do with us? And I thought about it. Actually, she has a point there, because looking back, what did it have to do with ordinary Afghan people? 19 Arabs, 15 of them from Saudi, hijack planes and wreak havoc on America. What does it have to do with ordinary people in Afghanistan? They were obviously concerned that they could be at war at any time, but this is a country which has a history of war and a history of resistance and a history of fighting back, right from Alexander the Great to various failed British campaigns. The Russian Empire was fractured because of these Afghan fighters. So that was quite an interesting aspect. As the day wore on, it was obvious that they were becoming more and more nervous about my presence there, and so we decided to leave. We stayed overnight near Torkham and then tried to get through the border, but the border had been closed and nobody was getting in or out. And I was becoming quite nervous at this point because I had to contact my news desk to tell them that I was fine and well. And so one of my guides said, well, we can get back into Pakistan if we go through the smuggling route. And I thought, well, this sounds exciting. And I imagined that we'd be ducking and diving from tree to tree and going round these deserted mountain passes. And when we got to an area called Dower Barber, one of the main smuggling routes, there were hundreds of people there. It was teeming with activity. It was like Coventry Road on a busy day. There were donkey traders, camel traders, people selling refreshments. There were families with all their worldly goods heading over the border towards Pakistan. There were young men striding over from Pakistan, looking for the Taliban to sign up and fight the great Satan, as they referred to America. The whole place was a hive of activity. I was feeling rather tired at this point, and my feet were cut and blistered from the Afghan shoes I'd been wearing. And so I complained to my guide, and he took me to this string of donkeys, very motley looking creatures, and he said to me, can you ride a donkey? We're only 10 minutes away from the border, but I can get this donkey. And I looked at this mangy creature, and I said sneeringly, of course I can ride a donkey. I ride horses, you know, I canter, I gallop, I jump over fences. Look at this, you know, it's half the size, but more or less the same shape. Of course I'll be able to ride a donkey. And so he did a deal with this trader, and I got on the back of this creature. Well, I don't know if it sensed something was not right, but it just suddenly shot off through this crowd of people, and everybody started diving out of the way as this rogue donkey just ran away. I didn't have time to get hold of the reins. My arms were in the air. I was shouting and screaming, and the wind was catching hold of the folds of my burqa, making them snap, making this animal run even faster. In the end, and this all happened in a matter of about 30 seconds, I moved forward and tried to get hold of the reins to try and bring this beast under control. And as I moved forward, the one piece of equipment that I had taken with me, a camera, fell out of the folds of my burqa right into the passing view of a Taliban soldier. And cameras were banned under the Taliban. And he saw the camera and he shouted, and in truth I'm not quite sure what happened after that. I don't know if he stopped the donkey and pulled me off, or if the donkey just stopped and threw me off. Either way, I remember going up into the air and smacking down on the ground, and then picking myself up. And as I got to my full height, I looked through the grill of my burqa straight into the eyes of this Taliban soldier who was shouting at me. When I got back to London, a few of my friends said, what was going through your mind when you realised at that point you had been captured by the most evil, brutal regime in the world? I said, in truth, for a nanosecond, I'm looking through the grill of my burqa straight into his eyes, and I thought, my goodness, you are gorgeous. He had the most amazing green eyes, those trademark green eyes from the Afghan girl who was on the front cover of the National Geographic many years ago. He had high cheekbones, a wild mane of hair, a great big beard. But as I say, it was just for a nanosecond, and then the harsh reality of having been captured kicked in. And I could tell that he wanted the camera, so I took it off my neck and handed it over, and then I put my arms down and closed my eyes, waiting to be shot. After about 10 seconds, which is a long time when you're waiting to die, I opened my eyes and he'd gone. He'd gone to see the donkey trader. He wanted to know who's in charge of this woman, and then he would get the real villain. And I thought, I can get away. He doesn't even realise I'm a Westerner. You know, I am still invisible. And so I saw a group of people and I thought I'll just attach myself onto the back. And I felt I could do this with a free conscience because we'd all sat down when we were planning this trip. You know, if things go pear-shaped, we won't know each other, we will know nothing about each other, and it's every man, and in my case, woman for herself. And so I thought, right, this is it, you know, things have gone pear-shaped, and I'll attach myself to this group. And so I started to drift away, invisible, nobody's taking any notice. And then I looked back, and I saw that one of the guides had been pointed out by the donkey trader, and the soldier was waving the camera in his face, and he smacked him across the face. And I continued walking on, and about 30-40 seconds later I turned back again to look, and by this time a crowd of about 80 angry men had surrounded my two guides, and I could see the soldier in the middle waving the camera furiously. And I realised at that point, I can't leave them. So I turned round and went back, and I tried to break my way through this crowd of angry men, and I was thrown back. This was man's business. It had nothing to do with a woman. And in the end, I realised that the only way that I could attract anyone's attention was by removing my burqa, which I did. And I said in a very loud voice, "Will somebody let me through?" And suddenly it was as though you could hear a pin drop. Everybody went quiet, and there was this parting like the parting of the seas. And I walked forward to the handsome soldier, who by this time was looking quite gormless, wondering, where has this Westerner come from? And then I threw a quick glance at my guides, thinking that they would have been so touched by this noble gesture. And they looked back at me as if to say, "Lady, we were in trouble before. Now we're in serious trouble." So, as noble as it might have been, I had not impressed them at all. We were all bundled into a car and driven off at speed back towards Jalalabad. On the journey, the driver and the soldier were arguing, and they kept turning around looking at me and arguing, and then suddenly the driver stopped the car like an emergency stop, and the soldier got out, and he opened my door and motioned for me to get out, and I got out, and I thought, maybe I'm just going to be shot here and now.